goes in sequence. They don't go one from this side and from the other. It seems like it is orderly. The first letter is written to the loveless church of Ephesus. And I thought to myself, Lord, if maybe I have been loveless, but you still spoke to Ephesus, speak to me. And I found that the Lord written another letter to the compromising church of Pergamos. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm also guilty in that department. But if you could talk to this compromising church, if you can still speak to me. He wrote again a letter to the corrupt church of Thyatira. And by the time I got to corrupt, I'm still ticking and I'm thinking, it seems like I'm guilty of everything here. I wonder whether the Lord would have written a letter to the wholefully sinful church. But then he writes even to the corrupt church. And I thought, Lord, if I have been found corrupt in your sight, please forgive me. But I plead with you to send me mail too. He writes to the dirt church of Sardis. He also writes to the faithful church of Philadelphia. And I'm not sure how many times I qualify under the word faithful, or if ever anybody could describe, or even God described me as faithful. He also writes to the lukewarm church of Laodicea. But so the Lord speaks to everyone. And I can rest assured you today, the Lord will speak to you. We often think that the Lord speaks to certain people, and we would think that we can hear from them what the Lord is saying. And just like me, I called around friends, please tell me, what should I speak about? Maybe the Lord is speaking to you. At least let him talk to you. You can tell me what the Lord is saying and I'll pass on the message. But I can guarantee you, if you plead with the Lord, no matter how sinful you are, whatever you have done in the past, whoever you are, whether you can speak or not, how much confidence you have, or how much you lack confidence, but the Lord has not given us a silent treatment yet. He will speak to us. But today, I decided that we concentrate on chapter 3, the letter to the church in Sardis. Now, Sardis was one of those good churches. It's the ancient capital of Lydia. It's described as the kingdom of wealthy. I mean, before you can even describe anything, if it's well known and it's described as this good church, well, and they're wealthy, I wondered where our church fits. Do we see any similarities in that? Well, he writes the church a letter to this church. Let me just read the text. Verse chapter 3, verse 1 says, "And to the angel of the church in Sardis write." I thought the verse was going to come up. "These things says he who has the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. I know your works, that you have a name, that you are alive, but you are dead." He says, write to this church and says, I know your works. I, the Lord, know your works. But I also know that you have a name. You are well known, that you are a church that is very much alive. So if Sardis was a church here in Reading, it would have been one of those churches. If somebody was describing the churches in Reading and says, I know you, Reading West. I know that you are known in Reading that you are alive. I know that you are known in Reading that if somebody wants a wonderful service, they go there. He says, I know that people are talking about you. For you to have a name, you're not just saying that about yourself. Other people are saying that about you. So people that have come, people that have looked at you, Sardis, think you are alive. But I, the Lord, declare you dead. But how is it possible that one can have a name, One can be described as being alive. Because if one has to be described, it means they compared to the other churches around, to the compromising church, to the corrupt church, and even to the faithful church. They are describing Sardis as alive, but they are not describing Philadelphia as alive. Yet God describes it as the faithful church. But the people around who are looking with earthly eyes are seeing that church. That's the church. That's the one that I want to go to. And I'm thinking, how is it possible that what we see as alive, God describes as dead? I had a brief opportunity to work at the Frimley Hospital as a healthcare assistant some years back. I quickly quit because me and dead people don't go together. It just wasn't working well. So I used to work for an agency, and when you work for an agency, you go to work not knowing where you will be working. You get to the hospital and when you arrive to work, they tell you, today you're working in this ward. And I get to that hospital and they say, today you're working in the, I can't remember what name they had for it, but it was a cancer ward. When I walked into that ward, it was half empty. There were just a few people in there who were admitted, and many beds were empty. And I think there was 1 or 2 nurses. And so the nurse gives me a brief that, you see, as an assistant here, your duty is to check the temperatures and the blood pressure. So as a healthcare assistant in hospitals, you're trained to do that. That's your duty in that hospital. I'm thinking, okay, this doesn't sound hard. I'll be fine. And the first patient that I'm sent to check the blood pressure is just lying there still. So I said, are you sure you want me to check it? She says, yes. Check her blood. I'm thinking, this woman, is she okay? She says, yes. Just check her obs. They call them obs. Just do the obs. I go and put the blood pressure thing, you put the, yes. And I try and read, and nothing comes up. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong with this woman. Yeah, she looks alive, but the machine doesn't seem to agree. And I do it again, and nothing comes up. Everything is just going haywire, and it's not reading. And then I call the nurse, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure about this woman. Do you mind dealing with it? And I go somewhere else. At that time, I'm very terrified, because remember me and dying people, we are not enemies. So she comes in looking at my terrified face, and she says, she's alive. And I'm thinking, yeah, I understand you. But I tried. Nothing came up. Says, no, don't worry, we'll call the doctor. Calls the doctor, and the doctor comes in and does some, whatever he did to her. And he says, make her comfortable. It's only a matter of time. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with these health professionals? This woman is dying. Where is the comfort? How do you make somebody who's dying comfortable? How can you die comfortably? Is there a way of dying comfortably? And when he walks out, I'm thinking, okay, please, nurse, what's that guy talking about? How do I make her comfortable? She says, no, we just need to make sure she's not in any pain. And she keeps talking. I can't remember half the things she said because I was so terrified. And I'm thinking, dying comfortably? I've never been dead in my life. I'm not sure how it feels to die, but I'm wondering how comfortably I will be when I die. I'm not sure whether people have almost died and come back and told them that they were comfortable. But then I wondered, that is there a possibility that a church can die while it's comfortable? Because then the church in Sardis is described as alive. People who are looking, they are looking at a church that's working well. But God says they are dead. So in this process of dying, did some nurse turn up and make them comfortable? In this process, where were the leaders when this church was dying? Or did they make the church comfortable? Because people should die comfortably. And I asked myself that how is it possible that Sardis, which is known by everybody, what evidence are they seeing of life in Sardis that God does not see? So I wasn't there when that lady passed away. So I'm still not sure how they tell when somebody has died. Because when I walked into that ward, I thought she was dead anyway. But that lady was alive, according to the professionals. And when I left in the morning, the lady was still alive. Yet I wasn't seeing any evidence of life, but yet she was alive. And I asked this nurse and said, so, how do you know that she's alive? I mean, I tried to do the orbs, and I didn't pick up anything. So how do people know that she's alive? She says there are certain signs that you see that determine that there is still life. I, who is not a professional, who just turned up there as an assistant, was not seeing anything, and I couldn't even see what she calls signs. They check everything, whatever, whether it's pulse and heartbeat and whatever it is they check. But the health professionals are the only ones who have a right to pronounce her dead, not me. So whether she looks dead or alive, it is not for me to say that she is dead or alive. Only the professionals have a right to declare her dead, because they know what is alive or what is dead. And I'm thinking, so in this particular case, when considering a church, seemingly everybody else was pronouncing this person alive, this church alive, according to evidence of churchgoers, but according to evidence of God, there's dead. And I'm thinking, what do we call an alive church? When we look at ourselves, are we still alive? Hello? Hello? Is it possible that as we come here today, when everybody around Reading calls us an alive church, or when everybody around the world in different denominations calls us good names, is it possible that the world who are looking still call us people of the book? Is it possible that everybody who is looking still call us the people who worship on the right day? Is it possible that when people see us, how humble and the way we worship in according to them, the right way, that there is a chance that the Lord looks at us and sees us dead? What is it that the Lord looks at when he's looking into a church that makes him pronounce it alive or dead? The letter says to the church of Sardis, I know your works, that you have a name, that you are alive, but you are dead. He says, be watchful, wake up, and strengthen the things which remain. So there is still something that remains, even in your deadness. Wow. I wondered, I mean, if we're dead, we're dead, Mose. I mean, so what could remain in something that is dead? And I remember talking to that nurse in the hospital, and she was saying, oh, these are the things we look for to show that the person is dead or they're still alive before we pronounce them dead. And I said, okay, well, the person wasn't moving. She laughed at me and said, sometimes even when somebody has died, a few minutes later, you might see movement. I'm thinking, so dead people move. Verse 3 says, be watchful, wake up. Actually, do you know the church in Sardis had, Sardis itself was a very well-built place. The scholars say the only 2 times that they were ever attacked was when their watchmen slept. While they were still awake, they never lost a battle. But twice their watchmen slept, and that was when they were attacked. So he says, wake up and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die. For I have not found your works perfect before God. So he is saying, now in this stage of you dying, the little that you have left, hold on to it. Strengthen it. While maybe you yourselves can be seeing things that have died, while you yourselves look back at the time when you were, while you yourselves look at the history and say, we used to have a vibrant youth group. Hello? Oh, we used to have a marvelous youth choir and everybody knew about it. While you yourselves we used to be committed while we were in Whitley. Everybody helped put the chairs together and we cleaned that hall. But when we came here, we no longer. He says, strengthen the little things that remain. Amen. Whatever you see that you identify as just a little life left, strengthen that, because even that you think is alive is ready to die. Wow. So if you are not careful, they will die. So wake up and watch and strengthen the little things that you have left. More than complaining about the things that we no longer have, strengthen what you have. When you see them going stronger, you will have the strength to even start up that which has gone. He says to the church of Sardis, remember therefore how you have received and heard. Hold fast and repent. Therefore, if you will not watch, I will come upon you as a thief, like the 2 times they were attacked, and you will not know what hour will I come. The lively church, the church with a name in the area, is it possible that the Lord will come and they won't recognize, they wouldn't know? But all is not doom and gloom, because in verse 4 he says, you have a name. You have a few names, even in Sardis, who have not defiled their garments. So in this dead church, there are people that have been faithful. Oh, wow. And I'm thinking, how did the church die when they are faithful members? I mean, what were they doing when everybody else was dying? Where were they? Or were they just coming to church, sitting and watching everybody else bring the church down? And because they're good people and regular standing, they didn't want to cause trouble. They just watched the church die. But he says, you know what? In this dead church, there are people who have been faithful, who have not defiled their garments. And they shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. So in case you were listening to this and thinking this is all bad news, what is she saying? You think you are dead? Yeah, we are not dead. Some of us have been faithful. And the Lord knows that you and you have been faithful. Some people may not know. Some people may think because there is you who has been faithful, the whole church is alive. Maybe that's why they are deceived. But he says, fear not. Even though all is dead around you, even though you are living in a gravesite, even though there is so much that we wish we could resurrect, stay faithful. He says, you will walk with me in white, for you are worthy. And it's the same message that the Lord gives us today. Stay faithful. Stay faithful. Stay faithful. And the letter closes at the end. I remember most letters used to close, yours faithfully, yours sincerely. I don't know when you're supposed to be faithful or sincere in your loving kindness. But this letter ends with the words, let he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Let's say amen again to Pastor Sindile. Thank you for the message. I hope all of us have been blessed. Our closing hymn is number 456. Can I rise up to our feet, please? I have a friend so precious, so very dear to me. He loves me with such tender love. He loves so faithfully. I could not live apart from him. I love to feel him nigh. And so we dwell together, my Lord.